Welcome to our site. At Redpath, we are committed to the establishment of a safe and enjoyable workplace. So please watch and listen carefully to the following safety and quality rules that are required by all visitors and contractors on our site.
Personal practices. Hairnets and beard nets must be worn at all times in all production areas. You must put on required hair restraints prior to entering. Hairnet exempted zones include raw sugar dock and shed, outside grounds and garages, breezeway and stores, maintenance shop. The proper way to wear a hairnet and beard net is to ensure that all hair is fully contained. All Redpath personnel in production areas shall wear provided uniforms. For temporary employees and contractors without uniforms, no loose clothing is allowed. Full-length pants are required. Shirts with no pockets are preferred. If pockets are present, don't use them for carrying pens or other tools. Jewelry of any kind must not be worn. This includes medical alert bracelets, and if you wear a medical alert bracelet, please inform a Redpath Sugar representative. All personal belongings are to be stored in provided lockers located in locker rooms, and personal belongings are not to be brought into production areas. Everyone entering production areas must wear CSA-approved safety shoes, safety glasses, hearing protection, and hard hat. Any items that need to be taken into production areas must be carried below the waist. All employees and contractors must maintain a high level of personal cleanliness. There is no chewing gum or spitting permitted in the Redpath plant. Employees and contractors must wash their hands after eating or using the restrooms. Soiled gloves must be replaced accordingly. Employees and contractors who have exposed cuts, sores, rashes, infections, etc. must have them properly treated and covered with blue metal detectable Band-Aids, which are provided in the first aid kits. Employees suffering from or being carriers of disease transmissible through food, such as hepatitis, salmonella, must notify their supervisor immediately. Housekeeping. All work areas and equipment must be kept clean and orderly at all times by the employee working in the area. Maintenance mess and debris created during repair shall be promptly removed by personnel completing the work task. All waste materials must be disposed of properly in designated bins and containers. We provide bags for collecting garbage. Redpath packaging material is for packaging only and is never to be used for picking up garbage or maintenance-related tasks. Proper utensils and cleaning tools must be used appropriately for use. No utensils and cleaning tools made out of wood are allowed. Product that has been allowed to touch the floor must be disposed of in the designated plastic bins or plain brown bags. Packaging materials must not be allowed to touch the floor. All cleaning tools must be cleaned after use and stored properly in designated tool storage areas. Tools used for glass, brittle plastic, and ceramics cleanup are to be marked with red tape. Contractors must account for their own tools. No maintenance or contractor tools are to be left in production areas. All windows and doors must be kept closed. Windows and doors can only be left open if appropriate screens are in place. Eating and drinking rules. Food shall be stored in provided refrigerators in the main and packaging cafeteria. No food items are to be stored in personal lockers. Only Redpath employees designated to work in following locations are permitted to consume food and store food items in provided refrigerators. 5th floor operator's booth, 3rd floor operator's booth, control room area, press floor operator's booth, granulator station control room, liquid loading office, bulk loading office, payloader booth, weigh tower booth. Employees working in designated eating areas shall store food and drinks inside provided refrigerators. Microwaves can be utilized for food reheating purposes only. Electric kettles for boiling water are allowed in designated areas. Dry coffee and tea, as well as milk, cream, have to be stored inside the refrigerator. Storing and cooking raw ingredients, meats, eggs, seafood, etc., is not allowed. Food, containers, and utensils shall be stored inside the refrigerator. Reminder: contractors are only allowed to eat in the cafeterias. Only water is to be consumed in areas other than designated food areas. Water has to be in its original container, or provided disposable cups are to be used for water coolers. Red Path Sugar provides Gatorade, Squincher concentrates, and freezies to aid employees and contractors dealing with working in extreme temperatures. The concentrates and freezies may be available and consumed only in designated food areas. Red Path kindly asks employees, contractors, and visitors to consider excluding allergens when bringing lunches to work. Some people may have severe food allergies, and we strive to protect our products and well-being of our employees and contractors.
Canadian Food Inspection Agency recognizes following groups of allergens: peanuts and tree nuts, sesame seeds, milk, eggs, fish and seafood, soy, wheat, mustard seeds, and sulfites.
Food safety.
All tools that may come in contact with product, for example, sampling devices, must be marked with green tape. These tools must be kept clean and stored properly when not used.
Glass materials must not be brought into any production or warehouse areas. Only quality departments can authorize the use of testing equipment with glass parts in production areas.
Only food-grade lubricants are to be used on food contact equipment, and they need to be marked with a green sticker.
Contractors bringing chemicals to this site must first obtain permission from a Red Path representative. Any new chemicals to be used at Red Path must first be approved by a quality representative.
All finished product samples must be in new containers. Containers may only be reused to collect in-process samples. In-process samples must be labeled correctly by means of a sample sticker.
Sampling containers are to be used for intended purposes only. Sampling containers are never to be used for any maintenance or contractor-related activities. Any potential product contamination, suspected or observed from any source, must be reported immediately. Any equipment failure which may cause product contamination must also be reported. Site rules. Smoking is only allowed in the designated area. Maintenance and contractors are not to use duct tape anywhere on site. Pedestrians, please use yellow walkways where available. Employees and contractors, coming and going from work in the yard not wearing proper protective equipment, must follow the yellow pathway. This orientation contains the general rules and regulations for the Red Path Sugar Limited facility and is only intended to supplement and not replace any federal, provincial, or local laws or regulations applicable to the contractor, its services, or work. Additionally, because these rules and regulations are of general application and each job is unique, there may be additional items requiring contractor compliance. Your Red Path Sugar contact will be available to provide specific company policies and procedures and any additional items requiring your attention and review. Safety documentation. Prior to commencing work, the contractor shall provide the Ontario Ministry of Labour Form 1000 for applicable projects, WSIB firm number and certificate of clearance, certificate of insurance, and proof of training, licensing, and/or qualifications of contractors if applicable. Contractors must also sign the Red Path Sugar's Company Rules and Regulations Release and Confidentiality Agreement for Contractor Personnel.
General safety requirements.
All work must be performed in compliance with all applicable federal, provincial, and local health, safety, and environmental laws, codes, and standards. Contractors must adhere to all Red Path Sugar policies, procedures, safety signs, and rules. All contractors who are working within our facilities will attend safety and process meetings as required by plant management. The contractor must also assure that all employees, subcontractor employees, and vendors are properly trained on the use of their equipment and the hazards specific to the area of work. The contractor is responsible for furnishing their employees and subcontractor employees with all safety equipment and other necessary items required by safety regulations at Red Path Sugar. All tools, vehicles, and equipment must be approved for the hazardous classification of the building, area, or process in which it will be utilized. Red Path vehicles or powered equipment can only be used by the contractor if pre-approved by the company and if the contractor makes available prior to that use written verification that those personnel are trained and qualified to safely operate the specific equipment in question. Smoking is permitted only in the designated smoking area. Report all safety concerns and accidents to your supervisor and Red Path representative immediately. For example, unsafe conditions or activities, property damage, etc.
Practical jokes, horseplay, scuffling, and fighting are not tolerated.
If a contractor believes that they have been exposed to a hazardous or toxic substance, they must report this to a Red Path representative.
Failure to comply with company rules or the life and limb policy will result in the removal of the offending contractor personnel from Red Path property and/or the immediate termination of the contractor.
Contractor employee safety violations may be brought to the attention of the contractor by any Red Path employee. The contractor must immediately correct the problem. PPE. CSA-approved safety shoes, hard hats, and safety glasses are mandatory. Hearing protection is mandatory in all posted areas. Use of all other safety equipment, for example, dust masks, respirators, fall protection harnesses, etc., must be used as required. Life vests must be worn if working less than 6 feet from the water's edge. Clothing. All contractor personnel must wear long pants at all times. No tank tops or sleeveless shirts will be permitted. Loose-fitting clothes must not be worn when working on or near rotating equipment. Long hair must be restrained. Jewelry is not permitted. Fall hazards.
Red Path fall protection policy must be followed. Fall protection equipment, including a full body harness, must be used if the hazard of falling more than 3 meters exists, and of using aerial work platforms such as scissor lift, cherry picker, etc. Ladders and scaffolding.
The use of fiberglass ladders is preferred for all work on Red Path sites and is required for electrical work. Prior approval is needed before aluminum ladders may be used. The use of wooden ladders is prohibited. Extension ladders must be tied off or supported by a co-worker. Regardless of construction, only ladders in good condition will be permitted on site. Inspect your ladder before you use it. Report any defective ladders and don't use them. Never use a substitute, for example chairs, boxes, etc. Take time to get a ladder. Any scaffolding built on site must comply with applicable safety standards. An in-house scaffold with a green tag is safe for use.
Barricade equipment. Red Path Sugar requires that contractors barricade off areas with physical hazards, such as construction sites, slip hazards, overhead work, holes in floors, excavations, and other openings. Yellow caution safety tape indicates a possible hazard, against which proper precautions should be taken, and means you may proceed with caution and be aware that work is being done in the area. Red danger safety tape signifies an imminently hazardous situation, which, if not avoided, could result in death or serious injury. Danger, do not enter, means under no circumstances is anyone allowed to cross this line, unless they are involved and in control of the work. In addition to the barrier tape, all barricaded areas must be marked with warning signs at all possible entry points, identifying the type of hazard, the reason the area is being cordoned off, the date that it was done, and by whom. Under certain circumstances, such as when a fall hazard exists, more substantial barricades like railings or fencing may be required in place of barricade tape. Combustible dust. Sugar dust is a combustible dust. Under certain situations, combustible dust can explode. A dust explosion can occur when 5 factors come together: oxygen, heat, such as ignition sources from a spark or a flame, fuel, which is the sugar dust, dispersion into the air, and confinement within a building, room, or equipment. When any element is missing, an explosion cannot occur. Control dust accumulation in all ignition sources by following good housekeeping and strictly adhering to hot work policies and the company smoking policy. Please report any sugar dust suspended in the air to your
Redpath contact immediately. Hot work permit. Before welding, grinding, or using open flames, torches, or other types of equipment producing sparks, a hot work permit must be obtained from a Redpath representative. A fire watch is required for all hot work permit jobs. Confined space entry. Before entering into any confined space, vessel, or equipment, a hazard assessment must be conducted, and a confined space entry permit must be obtained from a Redpath sugar representative. Only trained and authorized persons are permitted to enter a confined space. Hot liquids. A hot liquid safety permit, blue in color, must be obtained from a Redpath representative for all activities associated with the use of hot liquids over 60 degrees Celsius, 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and whenever you cut into a vessel with a hot liquid. A permit is only good for 1 shift. The required personal protective equipment must be worn. As a minimum, this includes face shield, safety glasses, rain jacket and pants, and rubber gloves. Prior to commencing work, confirm the location of the closest emergency eye wash or shower station. Lockout, tagout. For control of hazardous energy sources to the equipment and/or work area, lockout, tagout procedures must always be adhered to, and a permit to work must be completed prior to beginning work. Physically isolate and stop all energy flows. Some examples may include, but are not limited to, gravitational, thermal, chemical, hydraulic or pneumatic pressures, electrical energy, etc. The standard method of isolating equipment against operation is a single key padlock and tag, provided by the contractor. Each tag must include the name, date, and purpose of the lockout. Prior approval must be obtained from a Redpath representative before shutting down and locking out any equipment. Emergency procedures. Fire doors must not be propped open or obstructed. Emergency exits must not be obstructed or fastened shut. In the event of an emergency, dial 39999 on any phone for immediate assistance. If you need to dial 911, be sure to call security afterwards to inform them that emergency services are on the way. Any accident and/or incident occurring on Redpath property must be immediately reported on the day of the occurrence to a Redpath representative, and an investigation will follow. A copy of any first report of injury filled out by the contractor must be provided to the Redpath representative within 24 hours of the accident or injury. If it is determined that hazardous conditions exist, all contractor work in the area must stop immediately. Contractors may resume work only when authorized by Redpath representative to do so. First aid. Redpath Sugar may provide first aid for minor injuries and AED response on a Good Samaritan basis. First aid kits are located throughout the facility. For minor cuts, only blue metal detectable Band-Aids may be used. Emergency eye wash stations and showers are located throughout the site for first aid use. Evacuation. Emergency drills will be conducted periodically. While contractors are on company property, they are required to participate in the drills. The contractor's workforce must familiarize themselves with the evacuation plan in the area in which they will be working. Contractors must know their designated meeting area. In the event of a fire, the person discovering the fire shall raise the alarm, leave the building via the nearest exit, and wait in your designated meeting area. Ensure that the fire department is notified from a safe location. Provide details to the fire department when they arrive. Upon hearing the fire alarm, people shall promptly vacate the premises in an orderly fashion via the nearest and safest emergency exit. Exit the building and wait in your designated meeting area until you have been notified that it is safe to re-enter the building. Contact first aiders if first aid support is required. This is the sound of the fire alarm, Stage 1. This is the sound of the fire alarm, Stage 2. Contractors and visitors shall leave immediately upon hearing the first stage fire alarm. Elevators are not to be used during emergency conditions. Vehicle and pedestrian traffic safety. A contractor is limited to one vehicle on company property at all times, unless specific permission is given by Redpath to allow more contractor vehicles on site. All vehicles are to be operated at safe speeds, and all traffic signs are to be obeyed. Each contractor will be limited to only those pieces of mobile equipment required to perform the work. Contractor mobile equipment must not block facility roads, fire lanes, hose houses, fire hydrants, or emergency access routes. Contractors can only use mobile equipment, for example, forklifts, AWP, genie booms, cranes, etc., on site if they provide proof of training. No passengers are permitted on the forklifts. Pre-use inspections must be performed. All malfunctions or problems must be reported immediately. Contractors cannot use Redpath equipment without prior authorization from their Redpath representative. Pedestrians must watch out for and yield to cranes and fork trucks. Due to visibility and mobility restraints, cranes and fork trucks must be given the right of way. No personnel are allowed to ride in the back bed of vehicles, including pickup trucks. When working on roadways, near moving equipment, or on the raw sugar unloading dock, reflector vests must be worn at all times. WMIS. Prior to bringing radioactive, chemical, or hazardous materials onto the site, the contractor must obtain clearance to do so from the Redpath representative and/or the site safety manager. Before the work starts, the contractor must provide the following information to their Redpath representative: possible chemical hazards from the contractor's work within Redpath, MSDS for all hazardous materials brought into the facility, the protective measures required for normal operating conditions and foreseeable emergencies. Company MSDS binders are located throughout the plant. Compressed gas cylinders must be secured at all times with caps on when not on welding carts. Compressed air is not to be used for cleaning of dust from clothing or body. Flammable liquids will be appropriately labeled and stored in UL-approved safety containers, which are properly grounded. Oily rags, waste paper, and other flammable or combustible materials must be stored in tightly closed metal containers. All containers must be properly labeled and stored. Never dispose of chemicals down sinks, drains, or on the ground outside. Never burn chemicals to dispose of them. Never put hazardous chemicals in the regular garbage. Dispose of hazardous waste in the proper receptacles. Contractors must remove all waste that they generate. Asbestos insulation is in use in certain tanks and piping throughout the facility and is properly labeled. Do not disturb any insulation without prior authorization from your Redpath representative. Debris and housekeeping. All contractor debris is to be removed from Redpath property. Disposal is the responsibility of the contractor. Such disposal will follow all applicable federal, provincial, and local regulations. Areas for use by the contractor for offices, storage trailers, or fabrication will be arranged through the Redpath representative. The contractor is expected to keep their work, office, storage, and fabrication areas orderly to prevent product contamination and to avoid the creation of an unsafe condition. Debris must be cleaned up and properly disposed of on a daily basis. No glass material is allowed on site unless authorized by the Redpath representative. Utilities and services. Contractors are physically limited to the job site. Approved routes must be taken to and from the job site. Cafeterias, vending machines, locker, and washroom facilities are available on site. Please consult with your Redpath contact for details regarding their use. The contractor is responsible for providing a means of convenient communications approved by the Redpath representative. The contractor shall not tie into any energy source, electric, gas, air pressure, steam, etc., without prior approval from the Redpath representative. Many internal drains returning to process and yard storm drains may discharge to the lake or municipal sewers. Consequently, prior approval must be obtained from the Redpath representative before the use of building and sanitary drains. Drug and alcohol policy. No drugs or alcohol are permitted on Redpath property. Any contractor employee using prescription medication must report such use to his employer.
If a contractor employee reports to work and appears to be under the influence of alcohol or drugs, or appears to be impaired in any way, the employee will not be allowed on Redpath property.
Security and access.
As a marine facility, we are governed by Transport Canada and Marine Transportation Security Regulations. One of the mandates is to have and use the Marine Security Threat Level, commonly referred to by MARSEC level, to assign the current threat level. If MARSEC level increases from 1 to 2 or 3, then on-site security personnel will increase certain security functions. It is important that everyone on site be familiar with the meaning of MARSEC levels, as your cooperation will be needed in the event that the level changes. MARSEC levels are posted at both the west and east entrance to the facility.
Gate passes must be obtained for each contractor vehicle entering the job site. In addition, contractors' workforce may be assigned a separate gate for entry and exit and provided a designated area for parking. The company will advise the contractor concerning the gate and parking requirements to be used. All contractors must sign in and out of the visitor logbook at security. They will be issued a temporary visitor's pass that must be worn while on site. If deemed convenient by the Redpath representative, some contractors may be issued a swipe card instead of signing the visitor log on a daily basis. All contractor vehicles, packages, and lunch buckets are subject to inspection by the Redpath representative or by the site's security officers. Persons attempting to remove materials from the job site without authorization may be barred from the premises and are subject to prosecution.
The taking of photos or video on company property is not allowed without prior written permission of the company.
Firearms, other types of deadly weapons, and unauthorized explosives are prohibited on company property. The contractor is responsible to see that any visitors it may have entering the facility will be checked in and approved by an appropriate Redpath Sugar representative. Visitors to the site must be escorted directly to, and their activities limited to, the contractor's job site by a contractor representative.
Thank you for your cooperation, and once again, welcome to our plant. Your compliance to these requirements will ensure that the people visiting our site, the products that we manufacture, and the environment that we work in are safe. Please remember that if you require any assistance during your visit, please ask your Redpath representative. Once again, welcome to the plant and have a safe day.